Still not much time for the intro music today. I'm sorry about that. I miss it myself, but these things happen. Try to get my things seem tilted for some. That's a little better. All right. Hello, everybody. This is Darren. We are looking today at Acts 4, and we got some pretty intense stuff coming from Dr. Jennings. But let me see if I can pull up the text here. All right, so this is Acts 4 from the New Revised Standard Version, and whatever the updated, whatever that means. We won't think about that just yet, but I'll just read the first little bit here while we see if others might join us here. While Peter and John were speaking to the people, the priests, the captain of the temple, and the Sadducees came to them, much annoyed because they were teaching the people and proclaiming that in Jesus there is resurrection of the dead. So they arrested them and put them in custody until the next day, for it was already evening. But many of those who heard the word believed, and they numbered about 5,000. The next day, their rulers, elders, and scribes assembled in Jerusalem, with Annas the high priest, Caiaphas, John, and Alexander, and all who were of the high priestly family. When they had made the prisoners stand in their midst, they inquired, "By what power or by what name do you do this?" Then Peter, filled with the Holy Spirit, said to them, "Rulers of the people and elders, if we are being questioned today because of a good deed done to someone who was sick, or being asked how this man has been healed, let it be known to all of you and to all the people of Israel that this man is standing before you in good health by the name of Jesus of Nazareth, whom you crucified, whom God raised from the dead. This Jesus is the stone that was rejected by you, the builders. It has become the cornerstone. There is salvation in no one else, and there was no other name under heaven given among mortals by which you must be saved." All right. Just checking here. I'm going to send out another quick invite. Let's see. Check my email real quick to see if Mark and Marcy got my email. But yeah. Anyway, so to go back to the text, just to contextualize a little bit, we remember that in chapter 3, Peter and John healed the man who was beside the gate. And so we're getting a little bit of the aftermath of that. And we are in the middle of this questioning by, basically, you could say, all of the religious class and all the elite of the city. And Peter and John are arrested and put in custody until the next day. And this is where Jennings steps in with some very interesting comments about what this means and what it looks like for us to be a part of this movement. So let me let me try to get some of Jennings' stuff up. All right, so here are here's the beginning of Dr. Jennings from the commentary on Acts in the Belief series. I don't know if you can see this very well, but it has a heading for chapter 4, verses 1 through 37. And the heading is "The Criminal Disciple Emerges." This criminal dash disciple, linking them together. And there's a kind of pop-out quote from later in the section. Christians of the modern West have never really grasped our deep connection to the criminal mind, our mind. And I think even that you just kind of have to sit with for a minute if you grew up in the church, especially in any traditional sense of the church. And it must mean what he might be thinking about. He says, the deep connection to the criminal mind, our mind, is pretty crazy, really. But get into it. Get into a little bit more of what he says here. So here's his comments on this first part of Acts. Speaking holy words has serious consequences. These are not words that simply speak of God. There is nothing inherently serious, holy, or dangerous in God talk. The holy words that bring consequences are words tied to the concrete, liberating actions of God for broken people. Such holy words bring the speakers into direct confrontation with those in power. I tell you, I've been wrestling with ideas like this for a couple of weeks now. Oh, I see Marcy's here. Hey, Marcy.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right.
Super.
Yeah.
I saw Leonard's note.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, Leonard has a busy day. Actually, Leonard has a busy day pretty much
Yeah.
every day. Sometimes he's just nice enough to
Every day.
stick with
To
us
join us.
to some
To grace
stick with
us. To grace us.
yeah.
Yeah.
But so we thank Leonard for the time that he does give us. But
Yeah.
yeah. So what have you been up to?
Is Mark joining us?
I think so. I haven't
Oh.
heard otherwise.
Well, I went. Okay. I
What?
went to Kelly. My classmate Kelly Connolly was ordained yesterday at Second Pres downtown.
Oh, right. I saw that.
And Brian and Sharon were there. You saw what?
Yeah. I was going to say I
Yeah. So
saw
that was
something
nice.
about that on. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it was nice. It was and you know Anantha Barbie. Do you know that name?
Yeah.
Her sister-in-law. You know the presbytery of the James. Did you hear they have this new leadership structure where they have 3 general presbyters? They're like a lead. So Amantha Barbie's sister-in-law is the lead presbyter. Barbie Watkins is her. Yeah. So but I don't think they've hired the other 2. Right. They haven't hired the other yet. So she was there. So that was like the first time she had done anything. She's been on the job like 4 weeks, they said. And so yeah, but it was a lovely service. And second is, you know, a nice, real high church atmosphere for that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a nice place. Yeah,
it's a nice place. Yeah. So that's about all. I'm just serving as clerk of session. I don't know if I told you I was doing that. So that's
yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Fun times.
Yeah, it's interesting. Fun times.
Yeah.
Fun times.
Yeah. Observe and record.
Yeah.
Try not to get too.
And don't speak. I've been told, you know, your job is not really to talk. I'm like, you're not active. You're just the clerk.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to think if I heard back from Mark, but I didn't. You know, usually he says something
like he's not
to the contrary. You know. But he might be. You know, so he his work sometimes runs right up to the time, so he might be
right.
He might be in that situation. So anyway, I had read the first part of the text from Acts through about
I was just trying
verse 12.
Let me go there because I was actually trying to pull it up. Let me get my Bible.
I'll pull it back. I'll pull it back up on the. Let's see. Yeah.
I need more light. That's probably better.
Yeah. So in the text, you know, the things that stick out to me, kind of the whole list of people, you know, the people, the priests, the captain of the temple, the Sadducees, you know, all these people gather around, and then it's kind of interesting. It'd be interesting I didn't think about looking at this, but you know, it's interesting to figure out who among them was annoyed, you know, because it's like, you know, like all the commas and all the you know, like it's unclear which ones were annoyed.
Was it the captain of the temple? Was it
you know,
the Sadducees? Much annoyed.
Yeah. So and then of course, like this idea that it's about the resurrection of the dead, and then of course they're arrested and put in custody. And of course, somebody must not have been upset because, you know, they numbered about 5,000 who heard and believed. So
exactly,
so somebody was okay with it, you know.
Somebody was okay,
right?
Yeah.
And then of course the next day you have a whole big other list of people, you know.
Right. Rulers, elders, scribes, all these people.
Yeah.
And they question the prisoners. So I mean, this whole idea of and I'm not sure what page this is, where he talks about real preaching and authentic teaching is inextricably bound to real criminality.
Yeah.
I just was
I
like,
was
this idea they're prisoners, they're criminals, and I was I sent that emoji of fire. This whole chapter was just fire.
Yeah. No, I think this the kind of the key words kind of jump out, like with the you know, the custody, the prison, the power, you know, this question of resurrection and Holy Spirit, and then all the list of all the elites, you know, kind of on one side, and the prisoners, the power, the, you know, the Holy Spirit, you know, where all these things come down on the other side. Yeah, it's definitely definitely some good stuff. And I got the I'll pop this up, and we can, before we get back to it though, we'll say hello to Mark, who's come in and joined us. Yeah.
Mark.
What's going on, party people? Can y'all?
Yeah.
Party. I don't know.
I got you. Right.
No,
We're working our way up to it.
Where are we in chapter 4? Are we still looking at the criminality thing?
Well, so chapter 4, I basically just read 1 through 12, and I'd started talking a little bit about the first paragraph of the Jennings book, and then then Marcy came on, and then we went back to the text, and I was just gonna. I thought that maybe what we would do is just kind of slow walk through this Jennings stuff. We could just read a little bit and read a paragraph and talk about it. And then
I need to go back and reread the stuff on.
So I'll just pull up the first paragraph here, and I read it
so
a
much
little bit
in this today.
I know, like it's yeah. So this, and I was saying this before, I just like this, even this heading here.
Criminal, yeah.
Right.
Let's see if I can.
Yeah, but I guess, as we look at this thing, we know that these first century preachers were outsiders. Jesus was executed by the state, so he's a criminal. These are outsiders. So as we think about today, we are insiders. Right. So I guess it is shocking to us.
Right. Yeah, and this quote that comes up later. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, because you may be talking about the same quote that I'm thinking of.
No, I was just going to say this little call out that they have that comes up later in the text right here. Christians of the modern West have never really grasped our deep connection to the criminal mind, our mind.
Right. Right.
You know, some evangelicals read this stuff. They'd be ready to find this guy and lock him up and throw away the key.
Well, what's funny is, he's a Fuller Sem graduate. Tell me
about Fuller Sem.
Fuller is in California. It's a huge seminary, but it pretty much toes the line in a lot of ways on all these evangelical things. It's not fundamentalist by any stretch, but it's got some of the people. It's not considered
it's not liberty.
It's not liberty, but it's also not, it's certainly not considered any kind of, liberal or open, whatever. So, it's interesting. He comes out of a more evangelical background.
Okay.
So it is kind of interesting how he, you notice he quotes a lot of Barth. He quotes, like he's in a certain vein, Yeah. But yeah, I hear what you're saying about this. Yeah, there's a lot to say about that, and it'd be interesting to get a variety of people's opinions on it. But let me just read these first few lines, then we can talk about that a little bit. So speaking holy words has serious consequences. These are not words that simply speak of God. There is nothing inherently serious, holy, or dangerous in God talk. The holy words that bring consequences are words tied to the concrete, liberating actions of God for broken people. Such holy words bring the speakers into direct confrontation with those in power. Jesus not only spoke such words, but he was such a word. I think there's a lot to chew on, even in that.
Yeah, there is. I just think about a conversation I had with a guy. I went to Total Wine to pick up some wine. And I was talking with a guy. This guy, he works in the store, and I can tell based on our conversation that I think he works in the store just because he wants to. I think he's a person of considerable means. We were just talking about various issues from immigration to current politics, and I can tell where he's coming. He's coming from a truly conservative point of view. Mm-hmm. And I told him it was nice that we could have a conversation. He's a conservative. I told him where I was coming from. I'm a liberation thinker, and we didn't go at each other's throats. We could have a discussion, but folks are just locked into that position, and I think he heard me, but is he open to dialogue and see this from below? Probably not, because we're talking about a theology from below. That's what we're talking about.
Right.
And most folks who are conservative are just not open to that perspective. They're just not.
Yeah. That's interesting to think about this. Well, it's interesting, right? Like, criminality is an interesting banner to put things under, right? I mean, because the people recognized as criminals are almost always the people below, right?
Right.
But in many ways, like when he says that line about how we haven't wrestled with the criminal mind, our mind, it also makes me think of, the legacy of colonialism and the criminal mind that was, the Christian mind that created, exploitation, racism. But he's not talking about that particular criminality because that's not recognized as criminality or brutality. It's not recognized as that, it's a different, but yeah, think about it in terms of hierarchy, thinking about it in terms of how people get caught up in making hierarchies, and seeing from the bottom is it's something that Jesus called us to, but we can't. But it's hard to do.
I give examples. I saw a friend of mine share with me an article. I don't know if you both know. I work for child support enforcement, and so it was an article today about somebody who sent the article into a Northern Virginia newspaper about basically the article was basically saying before you get hung up on this whole abortion, all these unborn kids, fix the child support system and other support systems, which that I think there's some truth in that. But the typical perspective on child support is that the persons who don't pay are criminals, they're bums, they're whatever. And while there may be a small element to that piece, you talk to a lot of knockers to their parents, there are some legitimate issues. Issues of unemployment, issues of when I'm incarcerated and I get out, I have all this child support debt, I have all these fines I got to pay, I got issues of who's going to hire me. There are legitimate barriers for a lot of folks. But for most folk, it's if you're not paying, take them to court, lock them up, throw away the key. There is no excuse for being in that situation. Right. Yeah. Folks don't want to hear the alternative arguments, the alternative I don't use the term alternative facts, the other perspective.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, and I don't know, I don't want this to take us too far off, but I think it's that it also is I think this comes up later on about this idea of who gets to judge, and who's willing to, who gets to be the judge, in the situation. And I think that's one of the things about our system.
You're judging God.
Yeah. And how we don't. I mean, this is the thing that I think that we struggle with as a church, is that we have accepted all of these other judges as legitimate, and we never rank them like next to Jesus. You know what I mean? Like we accept that, we live in the most democratic, free nation in the world, but we never rank our policies or our things against what Jesus calls us to. We don't just over and over again, we let other people judge, how we should live our lives and what the state of our lives should be. And we don't as a church or as a community say, actually, this has to all be reoriented around the person who spoke and acted these liberating acts of God for broken people. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's when you challenge those things and when you bring Jesus to judge, to judge these things, that's when you get in trouble, right? I mean, that's when you you become the criminal when speaking those words.
You become a criminal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
so really, is it? I thought it was a call to criminality.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a call
Yeah.
to criminality? I think. And you know what I thought of as I read it with this idea of criminality. I started thinking about that motif of the trickster. Do you know that that term that from was it Miguel de la Torre, who talks about these subversive forces within a community that stand up to, in one case, I think he talked about this group that stood up to the church, where they came in and threw them out because they weren't doing anything for the people. And it's a classically pejorative term, I think, in Latin American culture, but he talked about embracing that role. I think it's Yoder is the word in Spanish. And I thought to myself, that sounds like a lot of this criminality. That's maybe it's a cult of criminality that we need to think about. So,
yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that's what he's saying. I mean, for sure, is that there is. I mean, basically saying, right, the criminal mind is our mind, or it should be.
it is our mind.
Yeah.
But we use it in service to Christ. Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't recommend that anyone go back and listen to this, but I've been preaching through Colossians, this last couple of weeks, and I think Colossians, in the second part of the first chapter, Colossians is the the big hymn, Christ is the image of the invisible God, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And it's like, and what I was trying to relate about that is that those were completely insurrectionary words. Those were criminal words. They're not just like theological ideas. To say those words in the Roman Empire was subversive, insurrectionary, basically calling on yourself to be in trouble, probably words you wouldn't even say out loud in public. You would say them in a room with other people, that you were pretty sure believe the same thing as you, and I think I just think about how far we are away from that sense, about what those words, mean.
Jennings,
go ahead.
I think those last sentences in that first paragraph, where he talks about the great illusion of followers of Jesus, especially those who imagine themselves that we could live a path different from Jesus. And all that, that was like the first thing I highlighted, and I was like, "Wow, that's right." That we could be, loved, or at least liked, or at least tolerated, or at least even ignored with the powerful. And we don't realize that it's totally subversive what he did, and To think that we can follow him and do differently is really it's folly, really.
So is the implication then that we've been co-opted?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I was like, wait, is there more to that question? Yeah, some of us have been.
Yeah, so
I mean, I've been.
Well, I think, I've been wrestling with this. I mean, I think that there's no doubt that all of us individually and collectively are complicit with the system, that is dangerous, wrong, and unholy, right? But and to that degree, like, we've been co-opted to one degree or another, and in some ways there's like a way that pursuing a certain kind of like purity and never acknowledging, and pretending of purity is dangerous, I think, because you can't not be complicit. I mean, like there's no way in this world that you can't be complicit, because it's controlling everything. Like, the powers that be are controlling everything. Like, you can't, it's hard to live without being complicit. But how do we acknowledge that, recognize that, and not give up to it? You know what I mean? Not just say, okay, well, whatever, yeah.
I guess we need to go back and look at the history. I mean, I guess it starts with Constantine. We almost said we weren't okay, but when Constantine said, okay, this is the official religion of the Holy Roman Empire, okay, well, that got us out of danger. There was no major system that the early church was opposed to.
Yeah.
So it starts there and it goes down after that.
Well, I think even though a lot of the New Testament, if read in a certain way, is advocating for a certain thing, that not succumbing to the pressure that's out there, well, because I mean, look right here. I mean, like, there are multiple parties suggesting that you might want to follow a different course, for these disciples, and suggesting it with rods and staffs, and jail time, means suggesting it. And I mean, I think the book of Revelation is pretty clear. What John is trying to say to the people is don't start to think that you can mess around in that system and just play around in there. Like, you're going to get corrupted if you're going to get corrupted if you're in that, if you just treat it like, like you can do that and like you can be a part of it and then not a part of it. And you have to be aware.
Just stick your toe, and that's it.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. I guess that, then this goes along with the chapter 4 on this, and then then Christianity and capitalism, can they coexist?
I haven't seen that.
That's more next week probably, but I mean that's a question we gotta think.
Probably not.
Well, I would say, I would say that. And if you look at the end of chapter 2 and the end of chapter 4, what it comes down to is this common sharing of everything. I mean, that just doesn't fly. I mean, like, that's not, I was listening to something today. They were talking about,
capitalism works. I mean, so.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, they were talking about like, way, so it's not compatible. It's not compatible.
Right.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
But of course, I mean, and of course, the thing that might keep us from saying that and being convicted about that would be, the reality that challenging that system makes you a criminal. I mean, if you think about, mean, if this is especially true in Black history, right? I mean, like as Martin Luther King Jr. gets closer and closer to embracing, socialist ideas and socialism going. I mean, part of his argument against the war is really coming from, the socialists in his life, his wife being pretty darn close to one herself, if not, pretty, so I mean, and it's that first you get labeled that whether you are or not, right? I mean, like, so that's the start. The start is that you're called that,
right?
And then that automatically makes you a criminal in a way,
Right.
You put black skin and a communist label together. you don't, you know what I mean? Like you don't, I mean, that's pretty much a death sentence, I mean, I mean, or at least you're going to get kicked out of the country or something. Yeah. I mean, and you think, Du Bois, the same thing, Paul Robeson. I mean, there's there's on and on and on. This,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, so yeah, I mean, I think that there's something to be said about this embrace of criminality that has a lot to do with the economic system, obviously, and all of the implications of it, because in the end, it's not I was thinking, I'm trying to think about, you think about this loved, liked, or at least tolerated by those with real power. I mean, basically all of our attempts to do good, in the world have to be shaped and curtailed, right? To fit into this, are they liked or loved or tolerated by the people in power? Will they give our nonprofit money? Or are we too this way or that way so that they don't like us?
We're too strident.
Are we?
Yeah.
And like, I mean, what you're saying with child support, like is there a, like, if you think about how you might figure out how within communities to make, to work that situation out without involving the court system, I mean, like you're even doing something helpful would be criminal, because you're not playing within the rules,
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of rich, there's a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of stuff here.
Yeah.
And then you look at what because what Jamar Tisby says in his book, The Color of Compromise, in which the church was co-conspirators to the whole process. I mean, he just lays it out in his book.
Yeah. Well, that would probably, that's probably another, it'd be an interesting place to look. I was thinking the thing that kind of what came to my mind in a different way reading this too was thinking about that Reconstruction era, when slavery was illegal, so to speak, except for certain caveats in the 13th Amendment, right? But that all of a sudden new criminalities had to be formed, right? I mean, like to make sure that people were still disciplined and put in a certain place. And so as I think about as the white church, or as the white church, what what would it have meant for us to kind of like embrace our own criminality in that moment, and say your attempt to criminalize is criminal, I mean, like how could we have, because the one thing that gets me about what he's saying here is that he calls these holy words, like speaking holy words has serious consequences. And he talks about, like, I think the word holy is such an interesting use. It's such an interesting word to use, right? Because it's like, we usually think of that as like pure and set apart.
Yeah.
And the way that we think about that is like kind of just, stepping back and removing ourselves from a situation, more than,
right.
I don't know, more than getting down and dirty, like, I mean, in a situation and like healing people and bringing liberation, what I mean? So I don't know. It's interesting. It's turning that word holy for me, in an interesting way.
You can see, I guess he's talking about being committed.
Yeah.
To that cause of justice.
Yeah.
Rather than, I guess this more evangelical way of looking at things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
because he says
when you say that, holiness, come let us worship the Lord in the spirit of holiness. I mean, that turns that whole song. You think about it in that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe that is the true worship. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because there's the whole thing in there about there's nothing inherently serious, holy, or dangerous in God talk. I'm still in the first paragraph, but
wow. Okay, let me go back.
But he said, there's nothing inherently serious, holy, or dangerous in God talk. The holy words that bring consequences are words tied to the concrete, liberating actions of God for broken people. And then he says, such holy words bring the speaker into direct confrontation with those in power. Jesus not only spoke such words, but he was such a word.
Yeah.
And I think obviously that leads to a whole, I think that ties in a lot with what he will say about the presence of the Holy Spirit in the community, and about what the Holy Spirit means as connecting us with Jesus. But I think that I don't know, it's just working on me, that idea like of holy being tied with words like concrete, liberating actions,
right.
Confrontation, just thinking about that.
It means I guess a total reordering of our way of thinking, really.
Yeah.
Right.
It means,
Yeah.
of course, it means that we think of worship. We think worship is a worship service, but it means that certainly that, march. If you participate in the march, that's worship. If you're involved in an organization that which is stand up for the right, which is standing for the rights of LGBTQ people, that's worship. If you're whatever, whatever the situation is, that's all worship. And that is even more important worship that's needed as what we do on Sunday mornings.
Right.
Yeah. The concrete liberating action. Right.
Concrete action. Right. Concrete
liberating action.
Yeah.
Right. And the most recent one happens outside of the temple, right?
Right.
It happens on the way to at the gate,
Yeah.
of the temple, in chapter 3, Yeah.
When Peter and James met the man, that was worship. When they encountered that man and they saw him for who he was,
right,
and intervened to transform his life, that was worship.
Yeah.
Everybody else is just walking. Okay, let me just go ahead and do my thing, Saturday, and do what I got to do.
Yeah. No.
Wow, it's deep stuff. Deep stuff.
Yeah, it's
Well, yeah. I mean, that sentence you read too. I mean, the great illusion section.
pull that up again. If you can.
Yeah. Sorry. That just it's only one. It's still in the same paragraph.
Okay, pull it.
But
yeah, we're still in one. We're still in the yeah.
Great illusion.
But let me try to get. Yeah, this makes it a little bigger. Well, let me just Jesus was such a word. Jesus not only spoke such words, but he was such a word. He was predestined to challenge those in power and confront the powers, spiritual and human. The moment was inevitable. The disciples knew this confrontation was coming. The struggle against those in power that marked the life and death of Jesus was coming for them as well. And then he says, the great illusion of followers of Jesus, especially those who imagine themselves leaders, is that they could live a path different from Jesus and his disciples. They believe somehow that they can be loved or at least liked or at least tolerated or even ignored by those with real power in the world. Then, I mean, this next line, the illusion is born of the forgetfulness of location. You know, and that's, I think, what you were saying, Mark. I mean, like that idea of where you stand on the ladder, right? The disciples are among common people proclaiming liberation, and violence and death are no longer the ultimate power. Yeah. But I just think that, like, I mean, I think in our culture, especially in our world, the way it is now, like, you know, the loves and the likes, you know, is kind of taken on a whole nother, that's a whole nother meaning, you know, about how you, you do what is, it's unfriendly words for what people do for likes, right? You know, well,
I mean, I think you look at somebody like Micah. Will the Lord be pleased with 1,000 of rams or 10,000 rivers of olive oil? I mean, Micah's saying that.
Right. Right.
Y'all be worried about how much stuff I can bring to the temple, but you're not really being true to covenant, which is part your neighbor. Love your God, and look out for your neighbor. Look out for the foreigner. Look out for the widow. Right.
And I think that's that difference between the holy words with consequences and like the God talk, you know, that's not inherently dangerous, right? Like there's just, you can just talk.
And that's why, and Leonard always says this all the time, we need to go back and really revisit the prophets, especially the classical prophets, Amos, Micah, Isaiah. Right. We really need to dig and understand for them what the importance of covenant and what covenant means. And I think we belittle the whole concept of covenant.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know it's boring and it's kind of difficult as well, but I mean, I think that we miss all the calls for justice and, you know, stuff for the poor in the Psalms.
Yeah.
You know, we don't read it. You know, there's not enough, you know, call out to that. We miss the fact that the prophets are just going back to Leviticus and Deuteronomy and Exodus. Yeah. I mean, that, you know, like they're not making this stuff up as they go along. You know what I mean? Like they're going back to what they, you know, to the beginning. You know, they're going back to the early stuff.
Back to
like
covenant.
It's a pretty steady. I mean, love thy neighbor comes from Leviticus, you know, right? So.
Go ahead.
No, I just was wondering, you know, it's easy to, I mean, I don't agree. I mean, we're all seminarians, so we know and we love the Hebrew Bible and understand its connection to what we're doing and everything. But how do you ignore it when Jesus is the one saying it? That's the problem I have. I mean, how do you folks do that?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, Micah, okay, Amos, but we're talking about it's like Alan Iverson. We're talking about practice. We're talking about Jesus, and y'all, and it's still like a mystery. I don't know.
I
You're
like
talking
that,
about
Marcy.
Jesus.
I like that, Marcy. Then we're talking about practice.
I mean, and you
yeah,
still can't.
yeah.
I don't understand how
Yeah.
you. It just
Right.
it's baffling to me how you.
But you
have
said
you
it, Marcy.
watered? Have you watered? Wait, have you watered? What is Jesus was that word? Have you watered that word? How have you watered that word down?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't even understand it.
Right.
But you said
my life
we're talking about practice, which is routine, hard work. And we want to take the easy way. We don't want to do the hard work. Right. We don't want to practice.
Right.
I remember when I used to teach new members class many years ago. I used to show this video, and the video talked about the great music of the jazz musicians, like my favorite artists, people like Coltrane and Miles Davis. And Coltrane he believed in practice. I mean, he practiced 23 out of 24 hours a day. So when you look at the beautiful tunes that came out of John Coltrane, whether it be Love Supreme, which you won a Grammy for, he was committed to practice. You know, you can't have this beautiful music unless you practice and practice and practice. I mean, Steph Curry can't shoot threes unless he practiced. We don't want to do the work.
Right.
It's because it's work.
Yeah.
We have to do.
Well, I don't. That's probably the most favorite clip of all time, and when I watch it repeatedly, I just love hearing him say that. I mean, I think trying to disparage practice actually when he said it, but this idea, he's just trying to be like, really, what we're talking. So I'm like, really, Jesus is what we're talking about, and y'all.
Yeah, we might have to clean it up for Alan, because because the scenario there, right, is because he lost like his best friend, or something like that. Exactly. He had just lost some people close to him.
He had all this stuff, right?
And they were all like, going on, and he's like, y'all want to talk about practice right now? Like, I mean, like, I got life.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I got life I'm dealing with. You know what I mean? Like, you want me to talk about practicing for like this game that I play? Like, like, let's get real. but no, but I
not a game.
Practice.
Right. So I mean, yeah, but I think I hear. As long as Alan, if you ever watch this, knows that we're not, we're not going in on you.
We're not.
We fully respect your opinion.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah. Well, as a Philadelphia native, you better be, you don't. You start talking bad about Allen Iverson, there's gonna be, your Philly card's gonna get pulled.
And when he's still very connected here at home. So if I tell him about it, you're in trouble.
To Hampton, that's true. To Hampton, right. That's true. Yeah,
Hampton's finest, one of Hampton's finest.
Yeah.
But I think like, I mean, it is pretty crazy, right? I mean, I think I don't know. I mean, I think there should probably be some more like videos and memes about this, but like, the expectation that people would be familiar in the church with the life of Jesus and what that might call you to, shouldn't be such a stretch, It really shouldn't be such a stretch,
We talk about being a disciple, but I don't think we really understand that concept, what that really means.
Right.
We haven't really broke that down. And again, because we don't fully grasp his Old Testament background.
Right. But I think you're right. I mean, I think, Marcy, what you're saying, I mean, I think we should be able to get to the Old Testament background even through just focusing on Jesus. I mean, we should be able to say, he's saying this and doing this because, it's in a lineage that goes ... Right. It's not like it's coming out of nowhere. This is it's pretty, I mean, and if you think about it, I mean, you can read most of the Gospels, in an hour at the most,
right.
If you just sit, I mean, like, you you can get through this stuff pretty quick. I mean, and we've had thousands of years,
But you talk to the everyday person that belongs to the church. We're a New Testament church.
Right. Yeah.
We're a New Testament. They want to don't.
Yeah.
The Jesus fulfilled the Old Testament. We're a New Testament church. We don't want to go back and revisit that.
Yeah. Well, and I think
is it just that people would rather be liked, and I mean, that plays into it too. You're not willing to alienate friends and family. You're not willing to put yourself out there. Certainly people. No one's walking around saying, "Oh, I want to be a martyr. I want to die." But no one's really wanted to do that, and so nobody wants to. But even the little things of speaking up when you see stuff is wrong, or all of that, just maybe thinking differently. Oh, I wonder, is this the best? I'm sorry. I wonder, is this the best economic system that benefits all of us? No, that just thinking about it. People don't. I find that people just don't want to think. They don't want to think about it. They don't. They just accept stuff, and I don't know. And it seems as though even the text, even the Bible, is now under this kind of, following this kind of assault on the truth, where people can. How do you twist stuff around? I mean, it's clear. And how do you even now that can be said, well, you're just not reading the text right. That's not what he meant. Really?
Oh, yeah. They're whitewashed stuff. Well,
you just went to seminary. You're seminary trained. You just think you know so much. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. I don't know.
Well, I mean, when Otis Moss talks about faith, he says faith is risk. We don't want to see faith from that standpoint. We want to see faith as believing certain stuff, but we don't see faith as risk. He uses those words interchangeably a lot.
Faith. Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, I mean, I think, that, I mean, the idea of being loved, being liked, being tolerated or whatever, I mean, that is, I mean, in a way, that's the capitalist system, right? I mean, you have to be loved or liked by people in power,
right?
To get fed. You know what I mean? Right. or you have to be at least tolerated or ignored.
Right.
In order to eat. To order to have your house. I mean, that's the system. In a way, in a way, for me, I need to be loved and liked by the people of my congregation.
Right. I know. It just feels like there feels like
and they would love it if I was loved and liked by the police chief and the mayor and the that would be
Darren, that's probably especially true in the Baptist church. I mean, if you make the wrong statement, they'll vote you out in a second.
Right.
So
right.
So
so I think I think it's hard because I think the other thing about it is that this requires a community, right? I mean, it requires a community of people that are there, that have pooled their resources, that have sought tried to figure out who's in need and how to help the need. This is hard to do if it's all about you being holy in this other way,
right.
And then if you're not somehow holy like we want you to be, that you're not part of us or what, there's an individualism to it that doesn't work with this either.
There is that.
I mean, I think
the risk part of it is that if you're rejected by the majority, you might have to go it alone, and most of us don't want to face that. That's true.
Right. Well, and it seems to me that that's the whole but again, like that's the whole point of the church, right? Is that like the church, the Spirit is the one who's going around gathering up all the people that everybody is trying to make be alone, and bringing them together. Yeah. Now this, but anyway, with the first two paragraphs, or actually the first paragraph, we got
good stuff. Next week we can do the rest of the paragraph, because the last part of that chapter is good too, when he talks about the common, that it not really being about them, but it was more about the commonality of people.
Yeah, well, yeah, we come back again to
that was the we can talk about it, because I thought that was because that's what we always talk about. It was, they were sharing their goods and when just kind of reframing that. It was really that wasn't even the best part about it. It was the community. So I thought that was great too.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah.
All right.
The spectacular giving versus the spectacular joining. I thought that was great.
Yeah, no, there's good stuff at the end, and there's good stuff all the way through.
There's so much.
That's why
I know my highlight is my just like highlight.
Yeah. Well, so that's why I put part 1 on this one. We'll see how many parts.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. I was like, we're not going to get through it tonight? I should have known we wouldn't get through it tonight. Yeah.
No. But good.
Do you look at his reference list? Do you look at the things, the people he quotes and stuff?
Some of the stuff, yeah.
Samuel Proctor. He's quoted him a couple times in chapters. And old Johnny C. I love where he quotes John Calvin.
Johnny C. That's cute.
Right. No, exactly. I mean, but in like even that, if you look through his references, you kind of, I mean, it's a fairly, it's, you get Audre Lorde throwing in here and there,
some
things like that, but yeah, it's a pretty fairly standard group of folks that he's referring to. Sometime I'd like to do a reading group with folks through Vine Deloria's God is Red. I have to think about that sometime.
Wow.
Indigenous.
You've read it, Darren?
Biblical scholar. I've read part of it before. I haven't read all of it yet, and I've listened to a couple people talking about it before. But it's one of those things that I have on my to-do list.
Who is this you're talking about?
Vine Deloria Jr. is his name. He's a Indigenous biblical scholar, theologian. He wrote a book called God is Red.
Okay.
And a bunch of other books. He's got one that's called something like How Custard Died to Save Us or something like that. He's got some really good good titles and stuff. But he has another book about technology, like science, like scientism and like technology, and then an indigenous perspective.
Okay.
There's some good stuff out there, but the God is Red one is the one that I've always wanted to look at again. But someday,
that's on the list.
Yeah, that's on the
list. You read his list, it makes your list get bigger and bigger. So
so I don't want to. All right. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Well, good. That was fun.
More good stuff next week.
Yeah, we'll start on paragraph 2 of chapter 4 next week. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
All right.
See y'all next
Good
week.
talking to y'all.
Okay. All right, y'all.
All righty. Bye.
All right.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.